It's wonderful. All right, back to Battlegrounds and the many minions that have been added. And I grouped these by Dragon Tribe. We're going to talk about Dragon Tribe minions first, and then we're going to talk about the few odds and ends that were also added in this patch. Starting with in Tier 1 with Dragon Spawn Lieutenant, a 2-attack, 3 health dragon with taunt. It's kicking you off.
Yeah. He's like super straightforward, but man, like 2-3 with taunt so early on with a dragon tag, like that's really good, especially given some of the other early tier minions.
Yeah,
like,
Vulgar Homunculus is a 2/4 with taunt and costs you 2 of your life to get into play. And trades,
he smacks me in the face.
Yeah, and trades quite well, right? With basically any option outside of weird buff classes like your Yogs of the world and whatnot. So Dragon Spawn Lieutenant is like stealth really good for a tier 1 minion. It stacks up well. I think you still want to go for tokens to get that early economy going, but in a pinch, Dragon Spawn Lieutenant, really solid tier 1 minion that can help you trade with the board. However, we want to talk about solid tier 1 minions, although maybe not one you want to like rush to get out right in actual turn 1 of the game. But let's talk about Red Whelp, your new favorite minion, everybody. Yeah. May I welcome our Lord and Savior and also bringer of salt, the Red Whelp, also at tier 1. Red Whelp is a 1-attack, 2 health minion that reads at the start of combat, deal 1 damage per friendly dragon to 1 random enemy minion. Gross.
Yeah, and it counts itself, right? It's a friendly dragon, so it's like, hey, guess what? I'm gonna do this, and also I'm still here to trade afterwards.
It's a single shot juggler until you goldenify it, and then it's a double shot start of round juggler.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I like it. I like it a lot.
What I am not clear on, and I actually didn't get into the scenario at the summit, so the question never occurred to me to ask anyone, is what happens when both of you have red whelps, like how it chooses which red whelp fires first.
When I was playing today, it seemed to be random. So it was like whichever player would get to attack first, then that's the red whelp that shot first. Now, I was the only one that had multiple red whelps. So I don't know if it goes back and forth, but it definitely went like I had 6 minions, my opponent had 7, he went first, his whelp fired, and then all my whelps went off.
Yeah, I had 2 whelps, and the opponent had a golden whelp, and the golden whelp fired first and double sniped my whelps because of course it did.
Because of course, yeah.
Yes. And I was confused as to, and that made me think, I'm like, I wonder how it decides firing order. Maybe they had 2 whelps. I don't know. Whatever the case was, whatever the board say was, I was confused as to how that was decided upon. But it doesn't matter. It's just a minor note that I'm kind of curious about.
It's basically just, I think it's just whichever player is going to get to go first in combat, then that's the whelp that fires first. Cool. I just don't know if it goes back and forth.
Well, if anyone knows for sure, let us know. But this minion is nuts. And honestly, you could do worse. For like just buying a minion and deploying it on turn 1, it trades well with the token minions because we still have the Murloc and we still have the Alley-Cat. And the Murloc is kind of it wouldn't be a 50-50. You would just straight up lose to them because you would be 1 to their 2 and the 2/1 would attack first. So you would lose that round, but it trades well with Alley-Cat. So there you go. And also trades well with Righteous Protector and Mecharoo. So yeah,
it's a solid tier 1 for sure.
It is okay in my book and very, very good in my book. Once you get any other damn dragons on the board, it's gross. It's just gross. It can do some really gnarly things. But let's move on into tier 2 for dragons with Glyph Guardian, a 2-attack 4 health dragon that reads, when this minion attacks, double its attack. And this is every time it attacks if it survives its first attack.
Yeah. Which, I mean, this I think is a really cool design. So like when it's just sitting there, it's a 2/4, but as soon as it gets to attack, then it's a 4/4, and then it's an 8/4. Like it just, probably. an 8/1, assuming it's still sticking around to live and attack again. But I've seen once these, if you can get 3 of these and if you can get a golden one, then this can get out of control and it's crazy and it's great.
It's a 4/8 and the card text changes on gold. It triples its attack.
It does. It triples. Yeah.
So
because at first I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, how did this get out of control so quickly? Because I think it had a little bit of a buff on it. And then, so the first time it was up to like 16, the first time it attacked. And then all of a sudden it was like 50 something. And I was like, okay, whoa, wait, hang on. Like, what is going on?
This card caused audible yelling at the summit because, the chat room right now is talking about the highest attack ones they've ever seen, and Gagazordon says 408.
Wow.
The highest ones I was seeing at the summit were over 300, and people, multiple times, people just going, how much attack? Just at the top of their lung. You would just hear it like across the room. It was hilarious. But yeah, it can get extremely out of hand extremely quickly, and it has some kind of gnarly synergy with another tier 2 Dragon Tribe card that we're going to talk about here in just a moment, but not before we talk about Steward of Time, another tier 2 dragon that has 2 attack, 4 health, and reads, whenever you sell this minion, give all minions in Bob's Tavern +1/+1. I love this dragon because it gives me an early way to buff the Glyph Guardian we just talked about. And if you can get any sort of buffs on Glyph Guardian, it just pays off in dividends because of the doubling attack. And also, if you have more health on it, it has a much higher chance longer to make a second attack.
Yeah. So
Steward of Time, really cool. And at least day one, in my anecdotal experience, in my extreme research of like 12 games, not a lot of people chasing Steward of Time. So I actually was able to find a golden one multiple times, and I just kept throwing it back and getting even bigger buffs and then finding it again and just kind of cycling them. And it actually worked out pretty damn well for me. So I like this card. It's of the dragons, one of the more tame ones, but can enable some silly things.
Yeah, if anything, because obviously this is a very, very specific to Battlegrounds. Like, this could never be in constructed, and it makes me want more Battleground specific minions because they get to have these super cool effects that obviously would have no effect whatsoever in constructed. I want to see this across more tribes, like doing cool stuff like buffing the tavern and things like that. Like, that's just so cool. Like, I want to see more stuff interacting with the tavern.
Also, wait till your first Dance and Daryl game and you start finding these over and over again. It's disgusting.
I can't wait for Daryl. I haven't had him today, and he's one of my favorites anyways. Ugh,
the only time I played Daryl in the last week was on my phone. That's the first time I've done it. Oh boy.
It's rough. I don't know why you would do that.
Because it's on my free-to-play account, because sometimes you lose connection, and that's the account I play on my phone, and I have 2 options. So sometimes,
yeah, Daryl on the phone is.
It's Daryl or Putricide sometimes, Jocelyn, and you just you know what?
Not anymore.
Daryl played poorly is better than Putricide played at all. So let's talk about the final tier 2 Dragon Tribe minion we're going to talk about. Not actually a dragon, though. It is Wax Rider Togwaggle. A Togwaggle in Battlegrounds has 1 attack, 2 health, and reads, whenever a friendly dragon kills an enemy, gain +2/+2. I cannot believe that this card is tier 2.
Yeah, and so this has the same sort of effect as other minions that grow. So as your hyenas, as your junk bots, and everything else. So all the buffs go away after the combat phase. But like Garrett was saying, when you get your Glyph Guardians going and buffed up with a little bit more health, and there are many ways to, buff the dragons and stuff. So once you get that to the point where it's like killing multiple minions, then your Togwaggle starts to get pretty big pretty quick. And yeah, like he's definitely interesting, but he happens, you're right, so early. And I think he happens so much earlier because he's not always guaranteed, but it's whenever a friendly dragon kills a minion kills an enemy, so kills a minion. It counted like my shots from my whelps, my red whelps. And it was counting like when stuff was running into my dragons and then dying. So it wasn't just when dragons attack and kill. It was just whenever something dies because it interacted with your dragon somehow. And I was like, oh, that's much better than I originally thought. I thought my dragons had to attack and kill. And in that case, I was like, oh my God, this is never going to get buffed up big. But yeah, because any way that things die if they interact with your dragons will buff Togwaggle, it's much better.
Yeah, I was with you. I kind of assumed it was going to interact like Overkill does and that it only triggers on an attack. But no,
exactly.
That is not the case. If your dragon
works the way Overkill should work.
Anything through any type of interaction, Togwaggle gets buffed. And because of Glyph Guardian, and that's potential to get out of control. The fact that like Glyph Guardian and Wax Rider Togwaggle exist within the same tavern tier, and it's only tavern tier 2, it's a lot of early gas for dragons. Again, if you can find it, it is so freaking contested right now, but it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So very good minion, Wax Rider Togwaggle, if you're going dragons. Kind of awful if you're not going dragons. Wouldn't recommend it. Let's talk about Bronze Warden as we move up into tier 3. It's another dragon with 2 attack, 1 health, Divine Shield, and Reborn. And
so all the things.
It is reborn with that Divine Shield. So this is quite good.
Is this our first like natural reborn minion in Battlegrounds? Because I know we have like Lich King that can give something reborn, but
I do believe that is correct.
Yeah, nothing else is actually reborn, which is interesting. Maybe we'll see more introduced sometime soon.
It's solid for sure. Becomes a 4/2 when it's triple. That doesn't get like some crazy double reborn or anything. Right. It's just standard reborn, but
that would be crazy.
There's
double reborn. I don't even know how they would keyword that, or I guess just give the token afterward. No, they still have reborn.
It's another dragon that I think is stealth surprisingly good.
Even at 3. It seemed to me like it came into the game so late. I was like, oh, I don't want this. Like there's so many other things that I would want.
I wouldn't be surprised if this got moved around. I could almost see Glyph Guardian going to 3 and Bronze Warden going down to 2.
Well, that feels more natural to me. Like if I were to just without knowing what tiers all these dragons belong to, like that's probably where I would have slotted them. Like 2 attack, 1 health, Divine Shield, Reborn sounds so tier 2 to me. And this crazy Glyph Guardian with its growing same with even, like Togwaggle is tier 2. Like both of those options, I feel like that stuff should be happening more around tier 3. But Bronze Warden, I feel like at tier 3 just comes too late. And there's so many other things that I want to look for at that tier.
I thought the same, like I kind of came around on this card in rapid order upon slamming games when I got to test it. And as I actually found dragon buffs, which there's multiple ways to pull that off, this card can start to feel like Cobalt Guardian in the Dragon Tribe because it's going to attack once with its Divine Shield, and if it has a large attack value, that's worth a lot. It'll attack a second time, and then you get the bonus Reborn off the back of that. It's not buffed, but it's still...
so then it basically leaves a 2/1 token behind, right? So
and it can open you up for... This helps you also bridge the gap if you kind of miss your kind of middle of the game dragon synergies, because this can help. You can do a Bolvar like side strat to help get you there, because this has a Divine Shield. It pops and then it reborns with a second Divine Shield and double buffs your Bolvar. There's a lot of different ways that this kind of helps you smooth out your draft in the mid game. I think it's. I
do want to try a Divine Shield dragon build because of a couple, or because of one minion we're going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I could see this working in a Divine Shield comp for sure, because like you said, there are things that can buff dragons. So yeah, I can see it, Garrett. Agree. I can see it.
I agree. Let's move on and talk about Hangry Dragon, which is actually what my wife calls me when I wake up in the morning. It's also a tier 3. It's also a dragon, I would hope, since dragon's in the name. It has 4 attack, 4 health, and reads at the start of your turn, if you won the last combat, get +2/+2. Do we have like flavor text in Battlegrounds? Because if we do, this should read, "Do you feel lucky, punk?"
Maybe.
Do you feel confident, I guess, you're confident that you're going to win and you're going to keep winning? Because if the answer is yes, you should 100% take this card. If the answer is, I don't know, maybe not your best choice.
This kind of seems like we talk about it in Constructed a lot, but like the win more card, right? It's like, are you winning? Well, now you get to win more because you're, buffing up your dragons, making them bigger. Like,
yes, but win more is worth a lot more in Battlegrounds, in my opinion, because this just snowballs.
Yeah?
This card inherently snowballs. If you start snowballing as dragons, this card just keeps the snowball going in its own right. And doubles that buff when it gets tripled as well. Right. And again, not the most desirable card to be chasing at the moment. So a golden Hangry Dragon, not the most insane thing in the world to chase if you find yourself with a pair, because it's going to upgrade into a 4 or to an 8/8 that gets +4/+4 if you won the last combat. So a lot of snowball potential here with Hangry Dragon. But yes, this is the one where I go, only in certain circumstances am I going out of my way to take the hangriest of dragons. So let's move on and talk about a non-bespoke dragon for Battlegrounds, Cobalt Scalebane, existing as you know him. This is another dragon at tier 4, moving up into tier 4 here with 5 attack, 5 health, and at the end of your turn, give another random friendly minion +3 attack.
He looks so familiar.
Yes,
it's like does. A happy place. Hello, Cobalt Scalebane.
Yeah. Great card. His triple is missing from the website, and I don't remember exactly how he triples. Because I
would imagine it would be give 2 random friendly minions.
You would think, but it could also be +6 to 1, and I'm not sure. Unless chat room knows.
Before, because isn't that how Juggler used to work? That it was 1 minion but doubled the amount of attack that it did?
If you're going to make an argument based on consistency, I'd like to remind you this is Hearthstone.
Which is exactly what I was about to do, is that maybe they learned from Juggler that it's actually better to do the thing to 2 different minions instead of just doubling the thing that they're doing.
Also, Sensei doesn't do that when it triples. It doubles the buff to 1 target.
That's true.
And this basically works like Sensei. Except it's not Mex. It's not any tribe specific, actually. Cobalt Scalebane is a dragon that you could throw into any comp you're running. And I think it's actually a pretty desirable dragon for a menagerie comp, and that's something we haven't even mentioned yet. All of those menagerie buffs that said dragon, you were thinking to yourself, oh, there's no dragons. There is now. Also, Curator, your amalgam counts as a dragon. Keep all those things in the back of your head.
Curator is so good with those whelps early on, because then you're getting 2 juggles because of the, oh my God, it's just, it's gross. Or not 2 juggles, 2 damage for your juggle, but still, you know what I mean? It's gross because that stupid thing counts as a dragon.
So gnarly. But yeah. Cobalt Scalebane, I like this card a lot, actually. I got some really good use out of Scalebane. And again, can kind of, this is one you can, much like a lot of similar buff cards, you kind of want to find this early, and late game it can just be a little too slow to get you back into it. So, Draconid Enforcer is next, still at tier 4. It's a dragon with 3 attack, 6 health, and reads, after a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain +2/+2, and Jocelyn's Admiration.
Yes, this is the one that I look at and just go, oh, beautiful, because I love playing Bolvar like Divine Shield builds. I find a lot of fun in Battlegrounds, that or the Baron Death Rattle comps. And I don't know. I really, sometimes I even go like Baron and Bolvar and go like Death Rattle Divine Shields, which is crazy. That's where I find my fun. So when I saw the
Shield Giver, because of the righteous or selfless hero,
the selfless hero,
that works really well.
Like usually I can triple that one, and then when you get that alongside of a Bolvar and a Baron, it's disgustingly amazing. It's great. So nobody steal my strat.
People are.
Yeah, definitely. I know. But it's so fun. Like, I really enjoy it. And so I saw this dragon when it was announced, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually going to be so good, because it goes right into that comp that I love to play. So I'm excited about this guy. And yeah, I think he's great. Plus he grows with health, right? Like Bolvar just gets more and more angry and just gets more and more attack. But this guy's like, no, I'm going to get beefy too.
Yep. Solid card if you're going Divine Shields.
Mm-hmm.
Herald of the Flame is up next. Still at tier 4. This is our last tier 4 dragon. 5 attack, 5 health. Overkill. Deal 3 damage to the leftmost enemy minion.
I don't know if this is good because it's overkill. So that's overkill means it has to be attacking, right?
Yes.
Now, dealing 3 damage to the leftmost minion is going to be good because it's very likely that has already attacked. So it's probably taken some damage. So that 3 damage from your Herald of Flame, there's a chance that it could kill that minion. But I don't know, man, because it's overkill and not working the same way that we were talking about what is it we were talking about earlier? Anyways, doesn't matter. Togwaggle, thank you. Yeah. So because it doesn't work just like when stuff runs into it, I don't know, man. I think this would probably be overpowered because there are so many token builds in the game that if you had just like deal 3 damage when a token runs into this, like that would be crazy. So I get maybe why it's overkill, but I think because it's overkill, this just becomes, I think because it's overkill at this point in the Battlegrounds match, right? At tier 4, I don't think you're going to overkill too much with a 5 attack minion. And then does it have to survive to deal the damage, or does it deal the damage and then die?
It deals the damage and then dies. As long as it overkills. I mean, if it deals 5 damage to 5 health, you don't trigger the overkill.
Yes, obviously, yeah.
You don't get the effect. This one seems kind of weirdly counterintuitive in multiple ways. It is tier 4, so it's a little bit later in the game. Now, granted, you can triple into it and get it on board a little bit earlier. But it also feels like it should be...
you can buff it and everything else, but yeah.
I wanted to target rate most, because that's where jugglers are stored. That's where growing minions. Obviously, 3 damage actually would not kill a junk bot, but...
No, but it could take out a hyena. Like it could, like you mentioned, a juggler. Like there's some stuff that gets stored on that right-hand side that, most of the time that's why you have to take zap, right? Is because you want to kill the stuff that they're, saving to the end. So I kind of agree with you. I think if Herald dealt damage to the rightmost enemy minion, then probably everyone would pick it. Which maybe is what they're trying to avoid, is stuff that feels like regardless of the comp you're going for, you take it.
And so far, most of the dragons we've talked about have been, I think, just kind of inherently good. Herald of Flame is the first one that I'm kind of like, I like the triple because it's a 10-8 and it deals 6 damage to the leftmost minion. The Herald of Flame as it is, especially coming online as late as tier 4, I'm not as stoked about this particular dragon because... You want it to attack first.
3, it would be great.
Yeah, I feel like you want it to attack first, but your likelihood of hitting a Divine Shield taunt minion and doing nothing other than popping the Divine Shield is extremely high. So you actually kind of want it more in the middle of the pack, and there's a decent amount left up to randomness there, and that's not the way I like to roll. So.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. But if you get some buffs onto this guy or triple it, it can be quite effective. I did triple 1 at the summit, and it was kind of gross, to be fair. Let's move on into tier 5, however, and talk about Murazond, our first dragon in tier 5, with 5 attack, 5 health, and a battle cry that reads, add a minion to your hand from your last opponent's warband. So
he looks so badass. Like, I love this art. I mean, his effect is awesome too, but man, that art, so good.
His claw looks a little weird.
I was more looking at his face.
I'm not going to get into a critique here about foreshortening. Let's, so we talked about Murazond a bit already. This is, again, not my favorite dragon, but
I like him.
has usefulness outside of dragon synergy. That being said, this might be my least favorite dragon.
Really?
Battlegrounds. Yeah.
I feel like I look at him and I go, that's actually really cool. I mean, again, like by the time you get to tier 5, like maybe not, but at the same time, I mean, you might be doing brand things. You've got a space on your board for, buffing and battle cry things going on. So, I mean, he's not the worst thing to double up a battle cry or
I mean, if I have a brand, okay.
I think he's great.
Yeah,
I like him a lot. Plus, you're going to be getting stuff from, I mean, he has like shades of Rafam in here, right? Like, except that your opponent can't even control it. Like if I'm going up against Rafam, I try to put my crappiest thing that I know he won't want over on my left-hand side so it dies first. Like you can't control this as the opponent. Like if they have Murazond, like you just give up something that maybe is super awesome.
Yeah, but you can't control it either, and so you also just might get junk which he at least Murazan is somewhat efficient in that way because you can sell the junk, which is about, I think, like the only reason I'm like, well, it's not total crap because, well, at least he kind of has a discount in that way in the worst case scenarios. But it's whatever. We needed, I think, dragons that weren't super impactful, which so far a lot of them are. Murazan is, a 5/5 at tier 5 with this type of effect. I'm just not losing my mind over it.
No, but I think he's good and interesting, and I like him. So,
well, I'm glad one of us does. Razorgore the Untamed is here, and I love him. Another dragon at tier 5, 2 attack, 4 health, reads at the end of your turn, gain +1/+1 for each dragon you have. And this happens like the turn you buy him before you head into your next combat phase. So if you got a board full of dragons, Razorgore is going to get +6/+6.
Yeah, he was the one that seemed to get.
I think he counts himself, so I think it's a +7/+7 potentially.
Potentially, yeah. I think he does. He does count himself because, again, much like the red whelp, it's every dragon you have, not every other dragon you have. So he does, in fact, count himself, and then so he can get up to +7/+7. Now you might have 1 or 2 minions on your board that aren't dragons, but still, like that buff guaranteed at the end of each turn, and because it's the end of your turn, it carries through combat, it carries through the next round, then it gets buffed again. So yeah, it's it can get really big really fast.
Yeah, snowball machine right here.
Yeah,
on Razorgore.
Which is funny because we're talking about all these guys being snowballs, but they're all dragons. So they're breathing fire, so it just doesn't really fit. But anyways,
some dragons live in snow.
That's true. That's true.
We didn't get any frost worms, did we?
Does Razorgore look icy? Because I argue that man looks fiery.
I didn't say Razorgore. I said some dragons. I said some dragons. Yeah, I love this card. Absolutely carried some games for me. Gross. Just super can be extremely powerful. Again, if you're going dragons. And honestly, I don't think you need a board full of dragons for this to be worth it. I had him work really well, and I had Togwaggle and Baron, or not Baron, Bolvar on my board, and Razorgore still got sick value. So give him a chance. Twilight Emissary is up next, still at tier 5, still a dragon with 6 attack, 8 health, taunt, battle cry, give a friendly dragon +3/+3. Fair.
Yeah.
Fair for tier 5.
I feel like I want him. Yeah. And again, he is tier 5, but I feel like I kind of want him to be the last thing that I play to hold my battleground spot, or not battleground, battle cry spot. So it's like if I'm constantly using one spot on my board to do battle cry buffy things, then like I play this guy last, leave him as a 6/8 because most of the other battle cry things are pretty small. Leave him as a 6/8 with taunt, and then go into the next round, sell him off, and keep going. He's a good placeholder.
We are just about to talk to a reason you want to be cycling battle cries in your end game with a dragon comp. And Twilight Emissary lets you do that. By the way, Twilight Emissary, I mean, you should be able to assume it from the 6/8 stats. When you triple Twilight Emissary, Twilight Emissary is a 12/16 in its own right, on top of also giving a +6/+6 buff instead of a +3/+3. 12/16 is nothing to scoff at. With no extra buffs, all you have to do is find 3 of these, which granted tier 5 is going to be a little hard to do. But if you find that pair, it's very tempting to try and triple this dragon. But let's talk about the reason you want to be cycling battle cries in your end game as dragons as we move to tier 6 and talk about Kalecgos Arcane Aspect. So Kalecgos is a tier 6 dragon. I don't know why it says tier 5. Oh no, I'm looking in the wrong place. 2/8 reads, after you play a minion with battle cry, give your dragons +1/+1. So if you're cycling your Twilight Emissaries, even a Murazan, what are earlier? Did we talk about? I don't think any earlier dragons had battle cries.
No, but a lot of the buff, like the menagerie buff stuff, now works with dragons.
Yep.
So
all of that works
there's options,
with Kalecgos. Yeah. Kalecgos is gnarly, as he should be, right? I mean, we're looking at freaking tier 6 here. This is the end. Should be something pretty crazy.
He's the aspect of Magic now. Like, he should be crazy.
Yep. 416 and +2/+2 whenever you play a Battlecry if you happen to get the Dream and triple Caligos. Like, you have to get so lucky right now with the way people are chasing dragons. It's nuts. But insane way to cap off your dragon composition for sure. But that's not all, Jocelyn. Can I interest you in Nadina the Red? Also at tier 6, 7 attack, 4 health, death rattle. Give your dragons divine shield.
She is not a dragon herself.
No, just
she's
a big fan.
Super cool.
Big fan of the dragons. Big fan of the dragons.
I mean, who isn't?
You want to Defender of Argus.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention too, like with the Draconid Enforcer and Bolvar, like love her.
I also really like the idea of a death rattle that is irrelevant when it comes to Baron Rivendare. Doesn't matter if you double this up. Does nothing for you. Maybe it makes you feel good because you got double animations. You just go, ooh, shiny.
Which you guys know I do every single time I play. Anytime anything shiny happens.
No one's surprised by this, Jocelyn. No one.
I know.
But that's it. Those are all the dragon minions that were added. But we have 3 more minions that are not part of the dragon tribe that were added into Battlegrounds. In tier 2, we got Unstable Ghoul. Exactly as Unstable Ghoul existed from Naxxramas in constructed Hearthstone. Sitting at tier 2 at 1 attack, 3 health, taunt, death rattle, deal 1 damage to all minions. This includes your own. So coming in at tier 2, that's something you really want to keep an eye on, especially if you're rocking tokens.
Yeah, but I think this is really interesting. And we had a question a little while back now about bringing AoE to Battlegrounds. And I think this is so cool. I love this. It's like, again, taking the hero powers that we have and working them in. Like, I mean, this obviously super Nefarian-y, except for obviously it impacts all minions instead of just your enemies. But at the same time, like, I don't know, this is just, I love this idea. I want to see more of it. Yeah, I actually, it might have been the episode that Vigil and I did. Did we talk about it then? Because I feel like I haven't heard your thoughts on AoE in Battlegrounds.
I do believe it came up. And by the way, bang up job on that episode. I thought you two absolutely killed it. I had a really good time listening to a show that I am on that didn't have me on it. I was like, damn, I would listen to the show every week, which is a great gut check as a podcaster.
Yeah, Vigil is such a good guest.
Dude,
I love doing the show.
Vigil, open invite, man. Anytime you want to come on and talk shop. I'm playing Constructed again. We have common ground. Also, if you don't come back to Battlegrounds for Dragons, I don't know what's wrong with you, man. Stop playing Apex Legends. What are you doing? It's really good, actually. I kind of want to go play Apex Legends. Anyway, yeah. So this is a great way.
Battlegrounds,
great way to bring it in. I think it's great. I think there's a really smart way to bring it in. I don't know how else you would do it unless it's some sort of proc, like we're seeing with Togwaggle, Junkbot, procs. Like it has to be it has to happen in combat. You have to find some way to do it. So it has to be like on a kill, on an attack, on a death, or tied to a death rattle.
I just really like the idea of having a way to combat against somebody who's doing a crazy big divine shield, because before it was mostly just like you were hoping to get like a cleave to take down a few at a time or something. And I just like the idea of like, if someone is going super mega divine shield, then you have some counterplay, which we hadn't really necessarily had as much of. And it comes so early in the game that it's actually very, very helpful. So you can work on like buffing up the health of your stuff while, you know, like combating a divine shield comp from your opponent. And then you're not going to see too much of a downside to that unstable ghoul, but it's going to allow you to, you know, like maybe take that when you know that you're coming up against like George or something like that. Then you can, you know, take that and, you know, again, have some counterplay. I love when you get, I guess it's like tech cards, right? They're like tech 100%. Cards in Battlegrounds.
And there were so much, they're a lot more exciting in Battlegrounds, I think, because of the draft nature of it and the real time draft nature of Battlegrounds.
Yeah, so you can like take it and then throw it away when you know that you're going up against someone that, you know, isn't doing either tokens or divine shields. You can just be like, oh, okay, I can get rid of the unstable ghoul now. I don't need it this round. it's going to be in the pool for when I need it later. Like it's a lot better than constructed where it just takes up 1 or 2 slots in your 30 slot deck.
And George aside, I think this has a lot of late game tech potential.
Yeah.
Because now you don't need to be Nefarian to try and counter late game Divine Shield comps. This is I love early game cards that you want to like sneak in as a tech in the late game. I think it's really cool. This is definitely one of those. This is one of those, like, if you're paying attention to who's winning and what their comp is, this might be a card you intentionally draft to win. And that's really cool. What also is really cool is naming a Murloc card Holy Mackerel, and that's exactly what they did with our next minion at tier 6, a new tier 6 Murloc, Holy Mackerel, 8 attack, 4 health. After another friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain Divine Shield.
Yeah, I like this too. I mean, the name, the art, it's a paladin card. Holy Mackerel.
Yeah, put it right after your Cobalt Guardian, and then it gets it, and then it attacks, and then it loses it, and then maybe you had, something else queued up with your second Cobalt Guardian queued up, and then Holy Mackerel gets it back, and then they kill your taunt minion that drops a microbot, and your Cobalt Guardians get their shields back, and all the while Bolvar's going, I'm going to get you Hyper Shadowlands by kicking your teeth in. It's going to be wonderful.
Yep.
This is the best name in the history of Battlegrounds minions.
A grim destiny.
Love this card. Imp Mama is the final new minion added to Battlegrounds. Also at tier 6, it's a tier 6 demon. 6 attack, 8 health. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a random demon and give it taunt. Ooh, mama.
Yeah, this is like, I was going to say Imp Gang Boss on steroids, but it's kind of in the name. It's Imp Mama. Like, just, man, this is so good.
You want a way to kind of cap off your juggler comp? Here you go.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a cool addition.
It seems like there's a lot of cool stuff now at tier 6. Like, it wasn't empty before. There were definitely reasons to try to go there, but I found like more and more often I was just hanging out at 5, and then the only time I was getting tier 6 minions is if I was tripling, and then I would, I discover my tier 6, but I very, very rarely actually made it up to tier 6 just naturally. So now it seems like maybe there might be more of a reason across more comps to actually invest in that upper tier. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all this plays out.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's really freaking cool. I think it's a cool addition. I like it, even though I'm still losing the juggler comps and I'm still salty about it. But
yeah, I don't love juggler comps, but I think that there's a lot more options now, and we'll talk a little bit about balance changes in a moment. But I feel like jugglers may not necessarily be the best way to play anymore. They're definitely a way to play, and they're still powerful. They're still strong. But I mean, that's all I was seeing for so long, that just having dragons in there, at least making people try to figure them out, to think in different ways. I'm hoping it doesn't just kind of like boil down to like, yeah, okay, it's just juggler comps as demons are just best. I hope that the changes that they put in have actually made more comps more viable with different heroes and stuff. Like, I just want to see more variety. I want to see people able to make choices. And I think that's what they've done with a lot of the dragons that we've seen with these additions to tier 6. Like, I think these are all very good changes.